By the way, how long do you?
All right, Magic Makers. I'm really excited about my next guest. I know I always say I'm really excited because I don't bring you duds. I bring you people that are going to give you real information. And so today I am joined by Jared St. Clair, and he is an herbalist, a supplementer, and he's a host of the Vitality Radio podcast. And we are breaking down supplements today because you guys all know that if when you pull up your phone right now, there's about 400 supplements telling you why you should buy it and try to get it into your pocket. Or maybe you open up your cupboard and you got 400 supplements and you've been taking them forever and you don't really know what the hell they do. So if you're staring in the supplement aisle and wondering magnesium, collagen, I got the guy for you who's really going to help us figure this all out. Welcome to the show, Jared.
I'm really excited to be here. I love that introduction because that is pretty much what I do. I've been doing this since I was literally 5 years old. I'm almost 53 now. I love talking supplements. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess let's just start there. You know, you've been in the business for a long time, and I've been doing fitness for over 20 years, and I feel like I don't know if it's just me or just because I get more questions about it. I feel like supplements have just become this like myriad of questions I get from my clients.
Mhm.
Has it been a supplement explosion, or is it just, the era that we're in?
Well, it's funny because what you said is 100% true with the social media landscape as it is. I think what it boils down to is if you're into fitness, then social media assumes you're also into supplementation for fitness, right?
Right.
If you're looking up things about health and about, I don't know, seed oils or gluten free or paleo or carnivore or whatever it is. If you're talking health stuff, you're searching health stuff, you're reading health stuff, then people are going to be pitching supplements to you at this.
Yeah.
And so even if you're not a supplement taker, I would anticipate you're getting hit with it all the time. Now I get hit with it all the time because I'm in the business, right? So I get so many supplement ads, it's insane. But I imagine the same for you because you're in the fitness industry and
Mm.
they're parallel industries.
Yeah. So it's just, by proximity, how marketers are. They're like, oh, if she likes fitness, she's clearly going to be into supplements.
Right. Yeah, because people are always looking for the edge, right? They want the thing that will make that hour in the gym work better, that'll make them feel better when they're done in the gym, making sure that they're everything from hydrated to, their muscle recovery and all that kind of stuff. And then the second answer to your question, second part of the answer, I guess, is that yeah, the industry has exploded. I mean, I
Mm.
was we my parents started our business in 1977, and that's a terrible time to open a supplement store. And nobody was buying supplements back then.
Right.
And it was like kind of a passion project for my dad. He didn't even work in the store. He was sort of this side hustle thing. The business never became a business until I took it over 30 years ago. And it needed to be a career at that point. And so I was hustling to try and make it that. And at that point, the supplement industry was an industry. People were making money in the industry, but the way the industry started, it was all passion. It was like, man,
Yeah.
I love this stuff. I love herbs. I love vitamins. I love nutrition. I want to share it with my friends, my family, my community. And now, unfortunately,
Mm.
it's such a big business. There's a lot of people that are in it because they just want to make money.
Yeah.
And there now it makes it much more difficult for the consumer to figure out, okay, who's in it for the right reasons versus who's in it to just try and make a buck. And that's one of the things that I try to help people figure out.
Well, with that said, I feel like right now everyone's against Amazon, right? Everyone has their pluses and minuses about Amazon. And one of the
Sure.
big things I see a lot is don't buy your supplements from Amazon. And is that because I know that there are probably people who are probably selling fakes of a product, or
Mm-hmm.
just the quality control isn't there on Amazon? Amazon, you got a pulse, you're paying your bills, we'll, we'll put you on the platform.
Yeah, there's really three parts to it with Amazon, and Amazon is the most glaring example of supplement fraud, basically.
Mm,
Now, I have to be cautious in saying this because I don't want to tell anybody listening something that's not true.
right.
There are lots of good supplement companies selling their supplements on Amazon. The problem is trying to figure out who is and who isn't. And that's really
Gotcha.
the challenge because you said fake products, I said fraud. And when we talk about those two words, That's exactly what's happening in a lot of cases. I was literally right before we hit record, I was just doing an episode of my show with a company called Terry Naturally, which is a very well known and respected supplement brand. And it was just a few months ago that they brought into me in my store, my local rep brought into me a bottle of counterfeit supplements in
Mm,
their brand name that was bought on Amazon. And it wasn't their stuff, but it had the exact label.
yep.
It had lot numbers and expiration dates. It looked official. It was sold as the thing. And somebody is out there making, I mean, this was a high quality looking
Right.
product, right?
Yep.
It was a good counterfeit, and somebody's out there making probably thousands of bottles of this stuff and putting it on Amazon. And what's really frustrating for me is that there's always going to be people cheating, but we need to have people that are willing to step in
Be the
and
watchdog.
regulate that
Yeah.
stuff, right? And Amazon should be doing that, but they're
Hmm.
not. They don't bust these companies, and they know what's happening. These companies have been turned into FDA,
Yep.
they've been turned into FTC, and nothing is happening to them. And so it's a really difficult thing. And then we have people that are, and this is something that just came across my desk yesterday. So it's really good timing that you're asking me this question. Um, we had someone come into our store who has a kind of a high position in a supplement brand in this country, and he asked not to be, not for me to share who he is or what brand he works for, but he said that they sell their products on Amazon. And
Hmm.
they've been having problems with counterfeiting as well. It's not the company I just mentioned, Terry Naturally, but another brand. And they were under the impression that if you bought from their store on Amazon, so
Right.
let's say Vitality Nutrition, we
Right.
actually don't sell our stuff on Amazon because of all these issues.
Right.
But if we were Vitality Nutrition and it said, check out the Vitality Nutrition store below the name of the product, we've all
Right.
seen that, right? You would think that you're clicking on that, you're seeing the authentic product sold from the authentic company and then just fulfilled through Amazon. But
Right.
he told us, and I've never heard this before, and I'm not even sure if it's true, but if it is true, it's a real problem. He told us that once it's in the Amazon warehouses, it's all combined. So even if it comes from the Vitality Nutrition
Oh.
store or it comes from Joe Schmo down the street saying he's selling the Vitality product, it all goes into the same bin and it's all shipped out regardless of
Right.
who it's
So if
from.
you're selling, let's just say aspirin. If I'm selling aspirin and I bought aspirin from you or I bought aspirin from Aspirin Co.,
Mm-hmm.
it's aspirin to Amazon.
As
And
long as it's the same brand name and
right. So
potency and size, yeah, that's what he told us anyway.
and they just throw it in a bucket and you're already getting credit for it because it went through your shopping cart. So it doesn't matter who the
Yeah,
inventory
and you could understand from a warehousing
from a warehouse.
standpoint
Yeah,
that would
because
be advantageous to Amazon,
right,
right?
apples are apples, right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't matter what orchard it came from. It's an apple, and I'm
right,
fulfilling that apple.
right.
So you're like, so on that, you're like, you can't really blame Amazon because they're like, their job is to get it in and get it out. Like that's their main role.
Yeah, and
Um,
that is their thing, right? I mean, we're going to get it to you sometimes the same day, the
right,
next day. You've got your Prime thing. I mean, we're recording on Prime days as we're doing this
right,
episode, right? And a million people are out. Well, a lot more than a million people are out there buying stuff on
right.
Amazon. I buy stuff on Amazon. It's extremely convenient. I don't like buying stuff on Amazon. I always feel it's a little
But
twinge.
you can't beat the convenience, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And so, but there are certain things that, yeah, we have to be careful of. And unfortunately, supplements are one of the most adulterated things on Amazon right now. And it's just a reality that we have to deal with.
yeah, and when you talked about the company like selling, a true fake of an actual branded product. Recently, one of my clients I had recommended a supplement to her, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And I said, "Oh yeah, they're pretty quick in shipping." She's like, "Kim, remember your product you ordered? You told me to order." She's like, "It's been like 3 weeks and I haven't gotten it." And I was like, "Really? That's so bizarre." I'm like, "Why don't you just contact them?" Well, she contacted them. Come to find out, the company, the a fraud company duplicated their website.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so she like ordered it, she like got an order confirmation and on her app was like it was in progress and so she's like it's been in progress for 3 weeks. I'm like that's weird. So contact them. They contact them. They're like, "Hey, we're aware of it." And they told this one time was on Shopify. They told Shopify and of course Shopify's like I got nothing. All right. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the company being the good citizen that they are, they're like, we're going to send it to you for free because you're not the first person who's told us about this.
Yeah, it's great customer service.
But it was like, it's like they were like, we don't want to be dragged through the mud that like you got taken advantage of and then we told you to go pound sand.
Yeah, it's a bad deal. And I mentioned there's other things with Amazon too. The other problem is you have so things that are hot, right? Like you talked
Yeah,
about magnesium, you mentioned collagen. These are two of the hottest supplements on the market.
right.
Berberine is
Yeah.
super hot right now. They did a company that we work with called Now Foods
Yep.
bought 33 berberine products from Amazon and had all of them lab assayed to figure out what was in them. And only 2 of 33 had the full dose of
Oh,
what that was in. 5 had no berberine at all. And most of them were under 50%, with I think it was close to half of them, 16 or 17 of them or something like that, that had less than 20% of what the label claim was. These aren't reputable brands. These are all brands nobody's ever heard of.
right.
They're just selling berberine because people are looking for cheap
Right.
berberine,
And if
and yet they're not getting cheap berberine. They're getting who knows what.
right. And if I'm an influencer, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best berberine since sliced bread.
Right.
You're gonna buy the berberine and not
Yeah.
know, and I might not even know. I might not even be taking it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Trust your influencer. That's another thing. Like if you've got an influencer that you really think is a legitimate person, then they ought not to be taking money from illegitimate companies, right? I have people that have asked me, a couple of the biggest companies in the industry that are on shows like Rogan and Huberman and these kind of shows that have asked me to do their stuff and or to be an influencer for them. And I'm not against being a paid influencer necessarily. I have yet to take that leap because I haven't found a supplement company that's approached me wanting to sell their stuff that I thought the supplement was that good.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
a good company comes along, I might
You're
be
like, I'm
interested.
all in, right? But if it's like
Yeah,
if you're like, I wouldn't even take it, I can't be like the cheerleader for it. And
yeah,
so you and I are in the same boat there. Like, I don't promote anything I don't take
yeah,
or
yeah.
have
Because
not
you haven't
taken in the
experienced it
past.
yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we've talked about labels. So like what should people be looking for in their label? Is there something that's going to kind of glare out at me that, the berberine I'm taking isn't really berberine or, any other kind of fillers that might be in products?
Yeah, there's a few things. First off, and all of this comes with a zero guarantees that what I'm telling you is always going to hold up because
Right.
people can still cheat, right?
Yeah, always find as soon as you like figure out the mousetrap, there's another mousetrap.
Right, because like on our brands, for instance, we have a seal that says third party tested. We have a seal that says CGMP, that's certified good manufacturing processes. Both of those are legitimate seals, but people can put them on illegitimate products, right?
Right.
Until they get caught, basically, and nobody's really patrolling it, so it's a little bit tough to catch these people. But those are good things to look at. Are they third party tested? I do recommend if you're going to buy something from a company that you buy it from the company
Yeah.
directly or from a supplement store like mine, that you trust, that you feel like those people are doing good work and they're vetting it for you. I think one of the biggest things that we offer people now at Vitality Nutrition is that we have been doing it so long and we have these relationships with brands that have been around for years and years. When new companies come to me and try and get me to sell their product, it's pretty easy for me to see the
Mm,
holes in their story.
yeah.
We had a company that came trying to sell us a liquid vitamin, and I actually know that particular vitamin in a liquid form is a specific color, and they weren't even close to that color.
Right.
And so I just knew that it was the wrong
Right. You're like,
product.
why isn't this purple?
Yeah, exactly. And because that raw material is always red and their product was yellow. And so it's like, okay, that doesn't work for me. And I called him out on it. The guy got all offended. And I said, I don't know if you're lying to me, but I think your company's lying to you.
Right. Well, because it's
Right?
like, if you're the salesperson, how do you know that, aspirin should be white, right? You're like, they tell you it's purple, and you're like, why wouldn't I believe?
Right, right. So then here's the thing, though. This is the biggest concern. The truth is that the FDA, a lot of people don't believe that this is the case because they've been told that it isn't the case. The FDA does regulate the supplement industry, but it
Huh.
is regulated the same way as food is regulated. And what that means is that they're not requiring double-blind, placebo-controlled studies like with a
Gotcha.
pharmaceutical that comes out. It's a looser regulation, but the regulation is still there. And if you're following the rules, which reputable companies do, then we know that there's no excess heavy metals. We know that there's no microbial things in there. We know that through good manufacturing processes that every single ingredient is lab assayed to prove that that ingredient is what the ingredient is. We know that the weights are all accurate. If it says it has 500 milligrams, it has 500 milligrams, and so on. So if people are following the rules and the regulations, then they are above board and everything is good. There are basically just a bunch of fly-by-nighters out there that are not. So the first thing is, if you haven't heard of the company, and most consumers haven't heard of most of these companies, right? I've heard of lots of companies. I do this for a living.
Right.
But most people haven't heard of the company. Research the company itself. The first thing I ask, and this is a Google question or a chat GPT question, either way, you can do this. Who owns Garden of Life? Who owns Pendulum? I'll just name, throw out a bunch of brand names.
Right.
Find out who owns the company. In many cases, if it's a fly-by-night company, Google will tell you, I don't even know who that is.
Right.
If Google tells you I don't know who that is, or we don't know who the owners are, that in and of itself is enough red flag for me that I'm just not going to give them my money because I don't know. And that's kind of a tough one for a little guy like me, because at this point in my career, Google knows who I am, and ChatGPT knows who I am. But 10 years ago, there wasn't ChatGPT, but Google didn't know who Vitality Nutrition was.
Right.
I mean, they knew it was a health food store in Bountiful, Utah.
Right.
But if it's a small startup and Google can't even figure out where the place is located or who owns it, I probably wouldn't buy a supplement from that company, especially. And here's the other thing you can do that's just a research thing. If it's on Amazon, or if it's on eBay, or if it's on like TikTok Shop, or it's on Instagram Shop, any of these types of platforms, then find the brand's website.
Yeah.
In many cases, you can't find a website for that brand. They don't want you to contact them.
Yes.
They are lying, and they don't want you to be able to contact them. There are multiple brands in the industry called Vitality something. We're Vitality Nutrition in Bountiful, Utah. But there are multiple brands called Vitality, and we get phone calls for people looking for that brand saying, hey, I didn't like the product. I want to return it. And we're like, that's not even us. And they're, well, I don't know how to find these guys. And I'm like, I don't know how to find them either. They're just not a legitimate entity. And I'm so sorry that that's the case, that people in many cases are getting scammed. But if you can find out who owns the company, if you feel good about who owns the company, because like I just mentioned, Garden of Life, a really well-known supplement company out there that got bought out by Nestle a few years ago. I personally don't want to give my supplement dollars to Nestle. So in that case, I don't want to buy from Garden of Life, but they're actually a legitimate company. I just don't want to support Nestle. And so if you can find out who the brand is, if you can find a website, and you can look on their website for many websites of reputable companies will actually share some of the data from like their testing, their third-party testing, things like that. They'll have seals on the website for the third-party testing and the CGMP and things like that. These are things that can help. And then it's really just looking at the quality of a product. The form of the vitamin B12, for instance. If it's cyanocobalamin, and again, we could go through every single vitamin. You and I could do this show for 9 hours and I could talk about this subject. But like methylcobalamin is a superior form of B12 than cyanocobalamin. Cyanocobalamin is cheap. Methylcobalamin is much more expensive. In many cases, you'll have two reputable companies and one is just buying cheaper ingredients. And that's not necessarily, they're not cheating. They're being honest, but they're just not giving you a really high quality supplement. They're giving you an average supplement. And so those types of things as well. And we are in the information age. You can Google these things. You can, again, ChatGPT is actually a pretty useful tool for this kind of stuff. Hey, what are the best forms of vitamin B12? And you can read up on that and figure it out. And then you're looking for supplements with those forms in them, as opposed to the cheaper forms. So those are some of the things, the tips and hints that you can use. But I think more than anything, know the brand to the extent capable of knowing the brand before you pull the trigger.
I agree. I think I like that, because you're right. Like, most of us are influenced by, hey, on the ABC shop, we're now doing a flash sale on you insert the supplement. And so of course you hear sale, you fly over and you don't even know what the hell is in the product you're buying. So with that said, does price necessarily equal quality?
That's a great question. I would say more often than not, the old adage, you get what you pay for, is still pretty accurate. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is, right? These old sayings last for a reason. And so if you are looking, a good example of this would be Amazon. If you're looking for, let's just say, magnesium glycinate, the most commonly used form of magnesium, and you see 10 or 15 brands that you're looking at of magnesium glycinate, and the one that you're interested in has significantly more milligrams per capsule than the other ones, and you're like, well, why does this one have 500 milligrams per capsule and these ones only have 200 milligrams per capsule? Wouldn't they both put 500 milligrams per capsule to be competitive? Well, truth is, you can't fit 500 milligrams of magnesium glycinate in the capsule. You can only fit about 160 or 170 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. So looking for like weird discrepancies like that can be
Gotcha.
cool. And then if one's $10 and everything else is 15, 16, $18,
Something's going
$10
on.
one, they're probably cutting some corners and or doing something a little shady.
Yeah. Well, other thing I also thing I see is that one company will have it and it'll be one capsule. And one company it'll be like, oh, 2 to 3 capsules.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so you kind of like, wait a second. I have to take 3 capsules to get the same thing from one capsule of another
And
company.
sometimes you would think, man, this one capsule is way better. But in many cases, it's only better because it looks better, not because it actually is better, right?
Right. Or
Yeah,
for me, I'm like, I'd rather take one than 3.
right. Yeah, who wouldn't, right? 100%. People ask me about my multivitamins, a 3 capsule a day formula. And people, well, why isn't it a one a day? And I said, because there's just only so much you can jam into a capsule, and I want to give you the proper potencies. So it's a 3 a day because it has to be a 3 a day to meet what I consider my standard to be the right potency of all these things.
Right.
So yeah, that's the problem. There's no surefire way. You can't put a supplement on a lie detector test. So these are just all little tools that hopefully can help people become a little bit more informed. My show, Vitality Radio, I open with the line, Vitality Radio is a podcast where we help you master natural supplements. And I talk about this stuff all the time. So if your listeners are really trying to understand supplements, that's really what my show is about. And, obviously I'd love to have people check that out. I have whole shows on just how to pick a good magnesium or just how to pick
Yeah.
a turmeric, those types of things.
You guys, I want you, that's why I brought him here. I want you to deep dive here because I see the bullshit. Like I see Susie influencer talking about, you know, uh, ashwagandha in a bag and like why I should add it to my shake every morning. And I'm like, should everyone add it to their shake every morning? Like, this is the guy that I want you to like learn your poop from. Like learn learn it. Like, is it worth you having a habit full of bullshit, or what are the things we really should focus on? And before we shift over to your Vital Five, one of the things I see a lot of with supplements is that they will have I'm going to call it a blend, but you give me the vocabulary. So it'll be
Sure.
like a adrenal blend, right? And so in the adrenal blend, it'll list off several different adrenal helpers. Is that bullshit, or is that just of someone who's formulating something that's going to help your adrenal system?
There's multiple possibilities there too, and it's a really intelligent question to ask, and I think everybody should be asking that question specifically. Legally, that's called a proprietary blend, and proprietary, of course, just means it's our business, not yours. We know exactly how many milligrams of each thing we're putting in. The only thing the consumer can know about a proprietary blend is if it's in order. It's
Uh,
always in order of volume, right? So if you have 5 ingredients in there, the one at the top is going to be the highest amount of milligrams in the formula. I mean, you could technically have 5 ingredients that have the exact same milligrams per, in the formula, and then they listed whatever order they want. But generally speaking, it's in descending order, the same way as on a food label would be, right?
gotcha.
A box of cereal or something like that. The reason proprietary blends exist is as a method of protecting the company's IP, right?
Gotcha.
As they say. So in the pharmaceutical world, you can patent Nexium, and then nobody can make Nexium until the patent runs out 10 years or 15 years later or whatever it is. And then you have all these generics that come out that are, a tenth of the price or whatever it is. That's how pharmaceutical companies are protected from people ripping off their intellectual property. The supplement industry is not really protected in that way. You can't patent legally a natural substance. Nobody has a patent on vitamin C or vitamin B12 or ashwagandha or things like that. You can patent certain processes on how the product is made. That exists. But the reason that companies use proprietary blends is to protect themselves from somebody else saying, wow, that's a great blend. I want to rip that thing off and I'll sell it for $2 cheaper. The
Gotcha.
problem is, I think the time has passed for proprietary blends
Yeah.
because I think consumers deserve transparency. And
Mm.
full disclosure, I still have a few of my products that have proprietary blends in them. I'm actually in the process of eliminating all of my proprietary blends and
Mm.
just telling people exactly what's in the formula. I can potentially get ripped off. Yes, it might happen. If it does, it does. It's just flat out competition at that point. But I think the consumer should know and ought to be able to know that there are this many milligrams of ashwagandha and this many milligrams of rhodiola and this many milligrams of holy basil or whatever's in the formula.
Right,
I think
right.
that's important, and it helps the consumer make a more informed decision. And at the end of the day, what I've determined over the last year or so, as I've been, well, it's really been about probably 3 years now that I've been eliminating my proprietary blends from my formulas, is that I am looking for intelligent, informed
Yeah.
consumers who want to do what's best for their health, and I need to provide as much information for them as I can.
And I think in the long run, like I like you're playing the long game, right? So in the long run, you're gonna be
Yes,
like, you know what? First of all, Jared's never screwed me over the 30 years you've been in business. And the fact that I'm now saying I'm opening my kimono and be like, this is what I'm doing for you. Like then I feel like there's more trust that you're not trying to hide behind something.
and that's exactly the hope. If somebody takes one of my formulas and does a carbon copy of it, I hope people will recognize that I developed that formula. I care about you and the products that you use and the quality of the ingredients, and will maintain most of that business. Um, I just am not as concerned about it as I once was. I think transparency is the most important thing at this point. And proprietary blends are also used. I said there's a couple of parts to this, right? They're also used to deceive the customer. And that's the problem. I don't want to be in a position where people think I'm trying to deceive you by how
Right.
much of what I've got in the product. One of the companies that should me to be an influencer for them is a very, very well-known company. I'm not going to throw them under the bus specifically, but they have a powder product, and the first ingredient in their two main proprietary blends in that powder product are the cheapest and least useful ingredients in the entire formula. But it beefs up the milligrams on the proprietary blend. It looks impressive on the package. And if you're not a really well-informed consumer, you would think those ingredients are really important, and you would have no idea that they're the cheapest ingredients because you don't make supplements for a living, right?
Right.
And when I saw that, I said, you know what? I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in a product that's $80 that really should only cost $35. It's
Right.
it's it's not a crappy product. It's a pretty decent product. It's two or three times the price it should be based on what they put in it.
Right. And you're for you're like, I'm just trying to derive value for your consumer versus how high can I charge?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the challenge. And that's another thing. If you are paying 100 influencers, how much do you think you have to charge?
That, that right there. Um, so, I love everything that we
Yeah,
have
that
talked
that's
about.
that's the biggest challenge. And so, our company's a really weird company in the industry. Like I say, my parents started this thing when I was 5, so that's 48 years ago. 48 years ago in August, um, and the industry has shifted and morphed and changed so much during that time. But what makes us unique at this point is we're still an independent health store with a website and a podcast. That's
Mm.
the company. Well, and we make our own formulas. I have about 50 formulas that I've developed over the years that we sell, and it's very unusual for a store to have a line of products,
Right.
and actually very unusual for a store to also podcast, educating on the products and all that kind of stuff. What I don't have is a sales team. I don't have anybody that is out there selling to other stores, that is selling to influencers, that is selling to distributors and all of that sort of thing. And because of that, we're actually able to deliver really, really good stuff for still what I consider to be a very reasonable price, because there's just a lot less middlemen in the middle. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm able to hang my hat on. And one of the reasons I decided to abandon proprietary blends, because I don't think most people can compete with me anyway. Even if they do copy the formula, I don't think they're going to be less expensive because of the way that they market versus the way that I do.
Yeah. I love that. And so one of the things that I wanted to invite you on the show for is that you talk about this, I believe you call it the Vital Five.
Hmm.
And I'd love to know, like, what are they and why are they, I call them non-negotiable.
Yeah, so the reason this started, it's become actually one of the things I'm the most well known for is the Vital Five, but that wasn't intentional at all. In fact, I found out it was a really good marketing tool way after way after I started using it. And because what it was is I had this radio show. My podcast has been around for about 5.5 years, but I was on local radio on the Utah Jazz Radio Network for 16 years. And I had all these people who had never taken a supplement before, or maybe they'd taken a multivitamin and that was it, that were discovering me because they'd been listening to the Jazz game the night before, and then all of a sudden they're listening to me talk about vitamins the next day. And so I had all these accidental victims that listen to my show completely unintentionally, and some of them thought it was entertaining, I guess, or educational, and they stuck around. And so I had a bunch of people who were really, for lack of a better term, newbies or virgins to the supplement industry, right? And so they would ask me the most common question by far was, where do I start? Right? There's a
Yeah.
million supplements, and I walk into your store and you've got 5,000 different products in here. How in the world am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to take? And so I put a lot of time and thought in it and thought, okay, where do I want to start people with that stuff? Because like there's some kind of obvious choices in the
Mhm.
Vital Five, and we'll go through them as we go through the five. Some are a little less obvious, but my parameters for or prerequisites, I guess, for determining what was going to go in the Vital Five, because we were using the word vital, meaning it's necessary, right? You got to have this. Is it needs to be something that is a nutrient that the body requires. So there are no
Gotcha.
herbs in the Vital Five because you don't require any herbs, right? It's got to be something your body requires, and something that is as universal in adults as I could come up with, because children's needs and adults' needs are a little bit different, and I
Right.
wanted it to be unisex, so it wasn't just for women or just for men, but for both. And so over time, I came up with the Vital Five. It happened to be five, not because, again, that it's kind of funny because Vital Five sounds better than Vital Six or Vital Four, I think. But it just kind of happened to be five because that's how many I thought were pretty universal. So the Vital Five starts with magnesium. And the reason it starts with magnesium is because I personally believe it's the biggest game changer of supplements that people can take and really feel a significant difference with, and that almost all American adults are deficient in. We know that our ancestors only 100 years ago were getting about 600 milligrams of magnesium in their diets.
Yeah.
And we know now that we're averaging less than 250 milligrams. So we're like 350 to 400 milligrams short right out of the gate, just because our diet has shifted so much. More processed foods, crappy farming techniques. We're not
Yeah.
replacing the nutrients in the soil and all these other things. And magnesium plays a role in over 300 different biological and enzymatic processes inside the body. And when you take magnesium, the single biggest thing that most people notice is that it is the de-stress
Yeah.
mineral. It's where calcium allows the muscle to contract and flex. Magnesium allows the muscle to relax and calm and rest. If we were getting leg cramps or restless leg, or we can't sleep at night because we're uncomfortable tossing and turning, our neck hurts, all this kind of stuff, or we're just not relaxed and calm,
Yeah.
magnesium deficiency is a big part of that. So magnesium is number one on my list. If you were to email me, I didn't know your gender, I didn't know your age, I didn't know your health status, I didn't know anything, and you said, Jared, I'm only willing to take one supplement. What is it? I would say
Magnesium.
magnesium
Yeah.
bisglycinate is the one supplement. So that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Number two on the list, and I'm going to say this now: the next four, I don't have a position for them. They all just
Okay.
fit into five. I don't think one
So
is
this is like the
necessary.
crown, magnesium, and everything
Yeah.
else can just fall it wherever it falls.
Yep, yeah, exactly. But we'll start with the one that I get probably the most questions about, and that's a good multivitamin.
Yeah.
Now, when I say multivitamin, I never say multivitamin. I always say good, or sometimes I say great multivitamin, because I have a podcast episode on Vitality Radio called Centrum Sucks.
Huh. Yeah.
And that is called
Yeah.
Centrum Sucks because I believe that is a completely honest statement. It's the most popular multivitamin in the world.
Yes.
It's made by Pfizer, who we all trust implicitly, right? And I personally don't want a vitamin that's made by a drug company. That's just one thing. But it's just a crappy supplement, and it's all marketing. And most multivitamins on the market and I have to be careful. I have to say this correctly. Most multivitamins found on grocery store shelves
Yeah.
are pretty low quality, pretty low potency. There's nothing really special to them. And in some cases, they have things in there that I personally wouldn't want to take. I think it's actually bad for me, not good for me. And that is the case with Centrum. There are multiple ingredients that I would not want to take on a daily basis. I have
Yeah.
no idea why they're in their vitamin. Health food stores, different story. Independent health food stores, even chain health food stores like Whole Foods and places like that, natural grocers, these kind of guys. Um, Generally speaking, carry at least good multivitamins, and in many
Right.
cases, they carry good and great multivitamins. And so that's one where you really don't want to cut corners. I don't think there's such a thing as a really great multivitamin found in grocery stores or big box stores. I just haven't seen it yet. The reason you want a multivitamin is pretty simple. We eat what we eat. And even if we're trying hard to eat a good, healthy, well-rounded diet, which frankly, let's face it, most of us probably don't.
Right.
But even if we are, there's gaps. There's a little missing here and a little missing there. And a good multivitamin covers the most gaps that we can possibly cover. My formula is called Ultimate Vitality Multi. And we decided to not just make it a vitamin mineral supplement. We wanted it to be a noticeable impact when people take it. So it's the product that I promise people will notice a significant increase in physical and mental energy, and decrease in, or I should say, improvement in stress response, where you
Gotcha.
feel better when you're under stress. And it's our #2 best-selling product after our magnesium bisglycinate formula. And people tell me all the time, I actually feel this stuff when I take it.
Hmm.
And we love that because most multivitamins, you're taking them, you're hoping they're doing you good, but you're not
Right.
necessarily noticing that they're doing you any good, right? The next one would be omega-3. That's one most people can guess. The vast majority of us are deficient in omega-3. You're in Boston, I'm in Utah. You have much better access to seafood than I do.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're coming to see your beautiful city in just a couple of months on a fall trip, my wife and I, and she is so excited about the seafood. But most of us are eating far less omega-3 in our diets than we need. And when I say far less, like dramatically less than
Yeah.
we, and most of us are still consuming too many omega-6 fatty acids,
Yes.
seed oils in particular. And omega-3 and omega-6, there's a balance, there's a ratio that's necessary there. It's believed that the optimal ratio is about 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. These are omega, because we need omega-6. That's
Right.
an essential fat. It's just that we're getting plenty of it. And
Right.
most times we're getting crappy sources of it, but we're getting plenty of it. The average American is like 15-to-1 or 20-to-1 when we should be like 3-to-1 or
Yeah.
2-to-1. And so the best way to address the omega-3 deficiency is to cut back on your omega-6 fatty acids, which mostly you're best served not doing seed oils or doing a lot less of them.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what seed oils are, I'm guessing you probably have heard by now, but Google it, you'll figure it out.
I,
Um,
I'm going to stop you right there. You know
yeah,
what?
go ahead.
I enjoyed what you said about that. You have people who like vilify and demonize all the things, but I liked what you said. You're like, we just take in too many. Like that's
Yeah,
exact.
it's just overkill.
And that's where the camp I stay in. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm not going to vilify seed oils, but I'm going to vilify them if you're bathing in it
Yeah, yeah. And the problem is almost all processed food is loaded with seed oils.
because
Almost
it's
all
cheap.
packaged food is loaded with seed oils. It's cheap, it's stable, all that kind of stuff. And in moderation, seed oils are probably fine for most people. I
Right.
personally don't respond well to seed oils. If I eat seed oils, I get a little inflamed. I can feel it. Other people don't notice it. But most of us are just simply getting too many, and especially in relationship to how many omega-3, because
Right.
it's a ratio and it's a balancing act. And if we're supposed to have 3-to-1 and we have 15-to-1 or 20-to-1, clearly that's out of balance. And what matters about that is that omega-6 fatty acids allow the body to inflame. We need healthy inflammation. That's a really, really important thing in the body.
Right.
What we don't need is chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
And when we have lots of omega-6, we end up with chronic inflammation. And omega-3 is the fatty acid that reduces inflammation. It stands at the top of what's called the inflammatory cascade. And when we have plenty of omega-3 and a reasonable ratio with omega-6, then we can inflame when we need to inflame, and we can be uninflamed or anti-inflammatory impact when we don't need to be inflamed. And the problem now, I talked about seafood, is that the oceans are not very clean, right? And so a lot of the seafood comes with a side of mercury and PCBs and arsenic and a variety of things like that. kind of the last frontier is still a wild Alaskan caught salmon,
Right.
which you can, if you can afford it to eat it on a regular basis, absolutely. I'd rather you get all of your omega-3 from
From
food.
food, yeah.
Absolutely. I would say the same thing about magnesium. I'd rather you get that from food. It's just really hard to do.
Right.
And so wild Alaskan salmon, a couple of 7 or 8 ounce fillets each week is actually a pretty good dose of omega-3, but that's $20 a pound, $30 a pound.
Right.
Most people won't do that. Some people don't like fish, right? So you got a lot of
Right,
reasons
especially
people might
salmon,
not do it.
especially the fishes that have the omegas are very they can be very fish tasting.
Yeah, they're more flavorful and maybe not in the way that people prefer, right? And so then taking it in a capsule is simply the easiest and frankly the most economical way to do it. This is another one where cutting corners is a big deal because omega-3 quality is big. If you're burping up your omega-3, it's probably a bad quality
Yeah.
omega. You're probably getting something that's actually rancid. That this is a health food store item. And listen, I own a health food store. I own vitalitynutrition.com. I'd love your listeners to buy from me. But if you're not buying from me, go to your local health food store,
Right.
get your omega-3 from a reputable company at a health
Don't
food
grab it
store.
from CVS.
Don't buy it in the big box store. You're going to get a much, much lower quality product. And in the case of omega-3, if you're getting a low quality product, you're actually getting something that is probably rancid. And if it's rancid, it's actually bad for you, not good for you. So you're actually walking the wrong direction with your health instead of the right direction. And you're paying for the privilege to do it, which is no good. So we got three. The other two are, well, the other one I think is probably one that most people can guess if they're very familiar with supplements. That's probiotics.
Mm.
Now, why are probiotics necessary? Well, if we weren't swimming in antibiotics in America, we probably wouldn't need to use a lot of probiotics. But unfortunately, antibiotics have become so ubiquitous and not
Yes.
just pharmaceutically speaking. Now, pharmaceutical antibiotic use is way over the top for sure. A lot of people that get a sinus infection use an antibiotic. 85% of sinus infections aren't bacterial, so an antibiotic can't cure it anyway. But we have antibiotics in our food supply.
Yeah.
Glyphosate, which is sprayed all over our crops, particularly genetically modified crops, is a human antibiotic. And 70% of the antibiotics, I don't know if you know this one, Kim, but it's crazy. 70% of the antibiotics produced in America are produced for animal feed, which is then fed to us.
Yeah.
So we're getting secondary levels of antibiotics through the food that we eat and primary levels of antibiotics if we're prescribed one. And antibiotics are notorious for not taking prisoners, wiping out good bacteria, bad bacteria, all the bacteria. And as our microbiome gets abused, we need to restore it. And so because even if you're like really figuring this stuff out, and I wasn't put on my first antibiotic until I was 45 years old. I never had one up until that because my parents knew how to do stuff without antibiotics. And I have 4 kids, age 13 to 28, who've never been on an antibiotic.
Mm.
And that's not me bragging about how healthy my kids are. It's just knowledge is power. And if you understand
It
how to take
is.
care of things with natural things, then you can avoid these things, right? I had my first antibiotic at 45 and it frustrated the heck out of me because I had to have a surgical procedure and they wouldn't let me not take it. It was a
Right.
lactic thing, right? But my point is, you can avoid antibiotics, and if you do your best to avoid them, unfortunately, there's so many in our environment, you're still not
Yeah.
avoiding all of them, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why it's in the Vital Five. I don't necessarily consider probiotics to be a necessary thing every single day of the year. If you're avoiding antibiotics, if you're eating healthy, especially if you're doing things like fermented foods and things like that, I think personally, a good probiotic, a few months out of the year is probably sufficient for that person. But if you've had a lot of antibiotics over the years, I think I said antibiotic, a good probiotic is what I meant to say. If you've had a lot of antibiotics over the years, you may need a probiotic consistently long term. If you have autoimmune disease of any kind, a probiotic has to be a regular part of your regimen. And I do recommend very specific forms of probiotics. I recommend what are called spore probiotics.
Mm.
My formula is called Vital Spores. There are some really great spore probiotics on the market, so I'm not the only one that has a good one. But Vital Spores is 3 different spores. It's Bacillus coagulans, Bacillus subtilis, and Bacillus clausii. These have really good human studies that prove that they actually help to rebuild and strengthen the gut in a way that human strain probiotics typically don't. So I know we don't have so much time. Otherwise, I could talk about probiotics for the rest of the day too.
Yeah.
And
We'll
then
have you on a part 2 correct.
Happy to do it. The last thing is one that people don't guess, and a lot of people have never heard of. I'm curious, any ideas what number 5 might be, Kim?
In my head, I was going to say vitamin D.
That's what almost everybody thinks. And the only reason vitamin D is not in there, remember I said it has to be something that it's difficult to get
Yeah, that's
in
true.
other ways, and that is pretty universal. Vitamin D3 is very universal. Most of us are deficient in it, and most of us are quite deficient in it.
Yeah.
But if you want to, you can get enough sunshine to get enough vitamin D. Now, I personally am someone who specifically tells people the sun is not your enemy. You just have to utilize it correctly. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Right.
Too little of a good thing. We were made to live in the sun. I really do believe that. We've been trapped
Yeah.
inside, and we've been bathing in sunscreen, which there's enough evidence now, in my opinion, that sunscreen probably causes more skin cancer than does the sun, interestingly enough. That's a pretty controversial statement, but there's a lot of people that believe that now. You can get vitamin D, but what I do to cover the vitamin D base is there's a lot in our multivitamin.
Gotcha.
So it's already in the mix. And that's why I didn't add it as a sixth thing. So number 5 is digestive enzymes. And some people have heard of digestive enzymes.
Yep.
Most people don't even know what they are. And it's one that I love to educate on because it's such a critical component of our health. Think of digestive enzymes as the things that take the food apart and break it into its individual components. So if you eat a piece of chicken, you might have 20 amino acids in that chicken. I couldn't think of the word. 20 amino acids in that chicken. Your body at the blood level and at the cellular level recognizes amino acids as nutrition and knows exactly what to do with them. But it doesn't recognize chicken.
Yeah.
The digestive system is in charge of breaking that chicken down into the individual nutrient components that the body recognizes and can utilize. And we have 3 things that basically do, well, 4 things. Our teeth break down the food, right? That's number 1. We got to chew our food, and every mom in the world has told all of their children, chew your food, slow down, honey.
Right. You'll choke. I can't
Exactly.
remember. I think it was like, I think people recommend, I think it's like 28 times or something, some number that you chew your food.
Yeah, and you want to hear a secret that's actually kind of cool, Kim, that people don't think about? I believe that there's magic in that, and that fits your podcast really well. The counting your chews, because if you think about how people meditate, and lots of people really struggle to meditate, we're counting our breath in many cases, right? And we're focusing on our breath. Our body, when we're in a state of rest and digest, which means that we are calm and under control, we're not in fight or flight mode, digests food dramatically better, because when we're in fight or flight, about 80 to 90% of our digestive processes are turned off because our body is prepared to fight or to run or do whatever it's going to do. So as we are actually chewing our food and counting our bites, we're actually kind of getting into a state of semi-meditation, calming the nerves and helping our body to actually digest the food, not just by chewing it, but by allowing the body to actually do its job, because we've now kind of relaxed our system. And I really coach a lot of people on that. And a lot of people find that to be a really, really helpful tip. So the teeth, the stomach acid, the bile from the liver and the gallbladder, and then digestive enzymes. Those are the 4 things that help us break down our food so that we can utilize the nutrition from our food. And if you think about me saying the vital 5 nutrients or products that I recommend that all adults use, none of this is useful if we can't absorb it. And digesting our food is the most critical element of absorbing the nutrition in the food. And that's why digestive enzymes are such a big deal. We're born with a finite level of enzymes that we can ever make. And the older we get, the less we make, because we'll actually die if our body stops making enzymes. Like literally, we will die. And so the body kind of throttles back production as we get older. And the less enzymes we make, the harder it is to digest our food. That's why most people don't end up with things like IBS or acid reflux or things like that until they're in their 30s or 40s. Because by about the age of 30, most of us are starting to produce less enzymes than we actually need to optimally digest food. So I recommend digestive enzymes with every meal. And I will tell you, this is a challenge I love to throw out at people. You start taking enzymes with every meal, one good quality digestive enzyme capsule with every meal. I promise you in a week that 95% of the people over 30 in this audience will feel better. They'll have more energy after they eat. They'll feel less gassiness, bloating, indigestion, heartburn. Constipation will improve if they deal with that. Diarrhea will improve if they deal with that. Enzymes they're magic. They're amazing, and one of my very favorite things.
So I would take it. So I'm about to eat lunch, take the
Mhm.
enzyme, then eat lunch. So there's no like kind of waiting period, if you will.
Right in that window. So you really don't want the enzyme in there 15 minutes before the food. You want it in there with the food. So right when you're starting down to eat, while you're eating, or even like right at the end of the meal, anywhere in there works great.
Gotcha. So as long as your body's going through that digestive process, pop it in there.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew about as you age, your digestive fire starts to wane, and I would,
100%. Yeah.
and I knew that, and usually a lot of my clients who talk about digestive issues, I was like, try this enzyme, see, and if it doesn't work, we toss it out.
Yeah.
But I really like that. This has been like, again, I literally like I could talk to you for hours on end. Like you are just like a font of information. Like you're the person who I'm like, hey, what about this? I would love to have you on speed dial. And everyone here, if you guys ask me a million questions about supplements. So if you are not listening to his podcast, going to his websites, buying stuff from him, don't call me anymore. We found our guy. We found our guy. He is the guy to go to asking all the questions because I'm probably going to ask him before I relay it to you. So let's just cut out the middle person. But yeah, this has been like really, really informative, and I'm so glad that I found you. So what I like to do with my guests like you is just have that speed round because all of us, like I said, we all have the questions about the supplements. And so I've already, things I've already written down like fish oil, worth it. Multivitamins, worth it. Magnesium, worth it. Probiotics, worth it. Now, what about collagen? You talked about that. Like right now, it's like the darling, right? It's like
Mhm.
collagen and like all the variants, legit or overhyped.
I'm going to say legit for sure. Possibly overhyped too, because there are a lot of people talking about collagen and saying some pretty big things about what collagen can potentially do. There are some interesting things about collagen. Like with every supplement, there's some nuance.
Right.
There's a particular collagen on the market called Verisol. It's not a brand I make or whatever. We do sell it in our store, but it's not made by us. But they've actually done some pretty cool studies on Verisol, and the study that blows people's minds is they've been actually proved that in 28 days of using Verisol collagen, that you actually will see a noticeable difference in fine lines and wrinkles in 28 days in your face. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And so there are some really good, well proven collagens on the market. The thing you need to understand about collagen, I think maybe is most important, is your body makes lots of collagen. And if you're taking the right nutrients, biotin is a big factor, silica is a big factor. Again, these are things that will be found in like a good multivitamin. If you're getting, really good clean sources of food, and particularly clean sources of protein, grass-fed beef, these types of things, your body's going to make a lot of collagen. So then the question is, do you really need to supplement collagen? And I think that depends a lot depending on the individual who's
Mm,
looking at it. Because for digestive health, if you've got leaky gut, for instance, collagen is awesome, and I
yeah.
would highly recommend it. If your gut's in pretty good shape, your joints are in pretty good shape, and you're eating a good, clean diet with lots of protein, I wouldn't supplement collagen in that case, in
Right.
most cases. And I mean, I love to sell you collagen, so it's not like I'm not happy to,
Right.
but I don't consider it very much on the necessary list. One of the things that I've just recently discovered, and I got so excited about, and it's interesting timing again. We just introduced at Vitality a product called Rebuild Plus, and it's actually a bone broth protein that's about 80% collagen, because bone broth is mostly collagen, but it's a beef bone broth that comes from cows that are raised in Sweden, of all places. And the reason we get the cows from there is because they don't add hormones,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
antibiotics, or any of that kind of crap. And it's a chocolate flavored protein that, I'm not kidding you, Kim. You can't even imagine how many protein powders I've tasted over the
Oh, I'm
years,
sure you've kissed a
right?
lot of
I
frogs.
mean, hundreds of different protein powders. This is the best protein I've ever tasted. It's a chocolate flavored beef bone broth. And everybody hears that and says, that sounds terrible. And I challenge people to try it because it is wildly good tasting. But if you are going to do a collagen, I like the bone broth actually better than collagen for one reason, and that is it actually has a wider range of amino acids than just
Yeah.
collagen. And it has these, and because of that, and a couple of other natural cofactors that are in there, there's just more health promoting stuff. And yet you're still getting all the collagen. So if you're going to do collagen, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I like that. Now, adaptogens, magic or eh?
Adaptogens have a lot to do with your stress level. So again, I'm going to say definitely legit, maybe not always necessary. If you're under a lot of stress, adaptogens do help the endocrine system to adapt to that stress and keep things calm. The most commonly known adaptogen for people who aren't familiar with that term would be ashwagandha.
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier, right? And so if you're under high levels of stress, if you're dealing with a lot of cortisol, that kind of thing, especially if you're dealing with what you think might be cortisol related weight gain around the midsection or the inability to shed weight around the midsection, then yeah, I think adaptogens make a lot of sense. But I base adaptogens on how stressed are you and how well do you tolerate that
Yeah.
stress. And if you feel like you struggle in that area, then yeah, I would recommend trying them.
Gummy vitamins.
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so gummy vitamins are all the rage.
Yes.
And the biggest problem with gummy vitamins, well, I guess it's two things. You can only fit so much in a gummy and still make the gummy taste good, right? There are lots of ingredients you can put in a gummy that work fine. You can get a good vitamin D3 in a gummy, for instance. You can get elderberry and actually have a pretty good gummy. You can get vitamin C and get like 250 milligrams in a gummy. Now, it's not as much as you can get in a capsule. None of these are as much as you can get in a capsule, but you can have a legitimate dose of ingredients in the gummy or of the primary ingredient, the active ingredient in the gummy, if it's the right ingredient. But like I've seen ashwagandha in gummies. I think that's almost always a mistake. There's only so much you can fit in before it tastes awful.
Yep.
And so I don't recommend ashwagandha in a gummy. It should always come in a capsule, or at least almost always. Turmeric, same thing. Turmeric gummies make no sense to me. So it just depends on, it's a volume game. How many milligrams you
Right.
actually need of the ingredient, and can you fit that many milligrams in the gummy? The other thing with gummies is a lot of them just have a lot of crap in them. You might be getting, you know, 10 milligrams or 3 milligrams of melatonin and 4 grams of sugar. Is that a good trade-off? Probably not, especially right before you're going to bed, because you can get plenty of melatonin in a gummy, but do you want that extra 4 grams of sugar just so you don't have to swallow a pill or put a tablet under your tongue?
Right. And then my last question, apple cider vinegar, real or trendy?
Oh man. So I was telling you before we started, I think I told you, or I might have been the last, I was doing another show right before we started. I did a whole show. It was 50 minutes on apple cider vinegar last week, and the
Link in
whole
the
show
show
got
notes.
deleted.
Oh my God, that is the
The whole
worst.
show got deleted, so I have to redo it. So I'm actually going to record that tomorrow. But the reason I did a whole show on it is because I get so many questions on apple cider vinegar.
Yes.
And again, health
Yes.
food store has been around for 48 years. One of the products that we've sold for every single one of those 48 years is apple cider vinegar. I mean, it's like as old a school of remedy as there possibly is.
Right.
My show revolved around apple cider vinegar as a liquid, apple cider vinegar as capsules, or apple cider vinegar as gummies. Are they all efficacious? Do they all make sense? Does vinegar make sense at all? I don't have it anywhere near my Vital 5 because I don't think you ever need vinegar necessarily, but it is a very health promoting food, and it really
Right.
is a food, right? And when you take a liquid apple cider vinegar, the challenge is it tastes really strong,
Mm.
and it actually is so acidic that it can actually work on your enamel and stuff like that. So you want to always dilute your vinegar. You don't want it to burn your esophagus or anything like that. But taking a liquid apple cider vinegar with your meals can absolutely enhance the digestion of your meals, especially if you're over the age of 40, because our stomach, I talked about enzymes over the age of 30. Our stomach acid is usually pretty significantly reduced over the age of 40. And apple cider vinegar is not exactly the same as the hydrochloric acid in our stomach, but it is acidic enough that it does a lot of the same work. So if you struggle with digestion, apple cider vinegar and digestive enzymes can make a lot of sense. Capsules work great. There's been a lot of questions about apple cider vinegar capsules, but there now are low heat processed apple cider vinegar capsules. So they still have what's called the mother. We've seen that,
Yeah.
which is the enzymes and the probiotics that are in there, right? And you don't have to taste them, and they're super portable. I actually have an apple cider vinegar capsule in our brand, the Vitality Nutrition brand, because I'm a huge believer in apple cider vinegar. Gummies are about 3 times as expensive as capsules or liquid. They taste pretty good, actually. At least I think they do. But unless you just absolutely don't want to swallow pills, I don't see the point in the gummies.
Yeah. Good, 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 good. All right. So this has just been like over the top, like literally, like I'm just like blown away with all the things you've shared about supplements. And you guys, I feel like you have got educated as well. And again, go to his podcast because I know I'm going to be binging right now. Uh, my last question I ask, what is one thing that makes you feel magical?
All right. So you warned me about this question, and I love this question. I was on a podcast just yesterday, and somebody asked me what was my number one health tip, right? And so I thought, well, I'll just use that, but that doesn't make me feel magical necessarily. I was at just at a little cabin, my wife's family cabin in just outside of Yellowstone National Park last weekend for the 4th of July. I don't know when this is releasing, but anyway, just 4 or 5 days ago, we were up there. And I have 6 grandkids, and my oldest son's daughter is about 19 months old. She's the first one on my side, and then my wife has a few on her side. And her daughter and son, who are 4 and 2, were with my 19-month-old granddaughter. I should say her granddaughter and grandson. They're all our grandbabies, and they all call us grandma and grandpa. But this was the first time they'd ever played together.
Hmm.
And they were on a little swing in the woods, and it was just this beautiful, serene setting. And I have this picture. It's right here on my phone. I'll show you.
Oh,
3 of them on the swing with these huge smiles on their face. I can't stop smiling about it. It felt so magical and so beautiful. Connecting with family and especially the innocence of children is as magical a thing as I can think of.
and I love how like, if that was say three like adults who didn't know each other, they would be
Uh-huh.
like, no, you go on the swing, no, you go on the swing. Where kids are like, screw it, we're all going. And I just love how like that is just like how kids just think.
They just were so compatible and it was so beautiful. And the 4-year-old was treating her new little cousin like they were best friends. It was awesome.
Yeah, I love that. That is I've been doing this over 300 episodes. I ask people what makes me feel.
Mhm.
I've never heard a dupe. Everything is like
Really? That's
never
awesome. That's
never
so
heard a dupe. And I sometimes like I think I've heard like two that I'm like, wow, that's a little out there. But for the most part, but
well,
for
I
the
could have
most,
said magic mushrooms, but that's for another topic.
I am having a woman on talking about magic mushrooms. But he doesn't sell them at the shop, just so
I
you guys
don't
are
sell them at the store. No, can't
not
do
yet,
that.
or maybe it's just because it's Utah. I don't know. But yeah, this has been really good. Thank you so much. Like I love your just very practicality of it and no, not using big words so that my audience feels like I have no idea, I'm out. So thank you so much for that.
Well, I have loved doing this show. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the way that you asked the questions you asked. You asked a couple I had no idea were coming that I think are really important questions. So well done. Thank you so much.
All right, Magic Makers, you know how I am. You heard one thing that made you like shake your head, make you had an aha moment. Screenshot this and be sure to tag us on the socials. Oh, where can they find you on the socials? I know I have all the links, but I want to say it anyway.
Sure. So Instagram is the primary place. We actually have a Vitality Radio listeners community on Facebook too. That's easy to find that link in any of my show descriptions. But Instagram is where I put most of my stuff. It's at Vitality Nutrition Bountiful. It's kind of long, but there's a few Vitalities out there. So that's our Instagram. And then as far as our website, it's vitalitynutrition.com. And the thing that I always like to share with people that are new to us is we are truly a independent family business. I have 2 of my daughters that work for me. I have one of my sons that works for me. He's been here for about 10 years and is super well versed in all this stuff. People can call us. I don't care where you're at and ask questions about this stuff. 801-292-6662. We're happy to talk to you over the phone. You can jump on our website. We have a chat feature. And until we get too busy, which is getting close, I think, my son and I, one of the 2 of us always answers the chat. It's not always right away. We do have a life besides our chat feature, but we will always get back to you and answer those questions for you because we do believe that intelligent questions lead to the best decisions when it comes to our health. And so we want to answer those questions. We love to have those questions and we're happy to help you with them.
I absolutely love that. So, guys, reach out to him, ask the questions, go to his website and podcast. I'm sure some supplement that you're interested in, he is covered, or it's in shortly going to be covered on his show. Thank you again so much. This has been like really, really, really good.
Thank you, Kim. Sure appreciate you.